Guys, it's Manga Time. Once again, I'm here to bring you my review of Bleach 632 Friend 2. And it is looking like this is going to be a mini flashback arc, which is really great. I wasn't expecting it to be called Friend, but, you know, whatever, I can deal with it. So yeah, we start off with the 5-year time skip that we got towards the end of last week's chapter. And basically, it's still being narrated by Bazz-B, and they're obviously slightly more grown up now. And basically, you know, they were hiding themselves in the forest as Yhwach was kind of conquering the world, basically. And they've been training as much as they possibly could. And, you know, Bazz-B is still quite good. He's like, because he's, you know, he's a genius, supposedly. But apparently, Haschwalth doesn't have what it takes to be a Quincy. At least according to Bazz-B, he can't do anything, really. You know, he still can't create his own reishi, still can't collect reishi, sorry, and make arrows. He still can't make a bow, anything like that. And it's definitely interesting that I don't think we've ever seen Haschwalth do any of that in the present time either. So I'm thinking he probably still can't do it. And I think the reason for that is kind of explained towards the end of this week's chapter. And basically, Bazz-B says, you know, I remember hearing back then the story of how one Quincy is born every 10 years. And apparently these Quincies are then culled while they're still young for being incomplete. And I guess he's talking about like Haschwalth's kind of Quincy. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. Or it's like the Gemished Quincy. I'm not entirely sure what that's all about, actually. But it's interesting how this is like 1,000 years ago, and Bazz-B's like got some flask, but you know, whatever. But anyway, apparently it's been 100 years since the last Quincy, and most people think of them as urban legends. I suspect a lot of this might be a little rough translation, and we'll see in the manga stream version, but you know, Bazz-B's like, you know, I thought that maybe teaming up with Jugo couldn't be much help in killing Yhwach, but seeing how hard he worked on his swordsmanship to make up for his lack of talent, I just couldn't abandon him. So it does show that Bazz-B does have a heart, actually. He actually seems to be quite a decent person back in the past, at least, anyway. And it's actually very interesting, because Kubo did build him up to be a bit of a maniac beforehand, but yeah, it's interesting that he's kind of normal now-ish. But yeah, it's cool to see Haschwalth with his sword. I don't think it's the same sword he has now. It is slightly different, I believe. But anyway, yeah. Basically, Bazz-B's like, I don't know if Haschwalth himself presumably realised that he was not able to become a Quincy or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, we then get to see basically Yhwach's soldiers arrive in this nearby town. And it's cool to note that the current flag they're flying, the emblem only has 3 prongs on it in the shape of a Y. Presumably this is the original symbol of Vandenreich, you know, presumably it's signifying Yhwach. It could also signify the triple irises, because he does have the Almighty activated in this chapter as well. But yeah, Bazz-B and Haschwalth kind of rush to the town because, you know, something crazy is going on. And we see that these 2 soldiers are now barking orders from Yhwach. Cool that these soldiers are actually Argola and Hubert, the other 2 soldiers that Yhwach, or Royd, saw in his battle with Yamamoto, along with Zedritz. And yeah, it's cool to see that. The Argola, actually, I think looks really cool, actually. He's got a really cool design. But anyway, apparently they're Lord Yhwach's personal escorts. And basically Argola's like, you know, His Majesty's declaring the formation of a new army. And Hubert lifts up this new flag with the 5-pronged symbol of the Sternritter, which is really cool, actually. And you know, Argola's like, this army will do us proud by invading the Soul Society. And interestingly, everyone in the real world seems to know what the Soul Society is, because they're all like, you know, invading the Soul Society, what? That's crazy. But Argola's like, you know, Lord Yhwach feels we shouldn't wait for the Soul Society to gain its power to go against us. So, presumably, unless the Soul Society is actually planning on trying to take over the human world, which might be possible, because we know that back here, Yamamoto's a complete nut job. He's almost a bit of a tyrant back here. Or it could be that Yhwach has instructed his men to lie to the people of the human world that the Soul Society wants to go against them, so they might take up arms against them. But anyway, you know, Argola's like, we'll be strict when it comes to conscription. And basically, Bazz-B wants in. You know, he's like, you know, we ought to fight for our survival, for the Quincies. And he confronts Argola, and Argola's like, you know, what is it you want? And Bazz-B's like, oh, we want to join this Sternritter thing of yours. And everyone's kind of like, oh my god, he's going to be killed. But Argola just turns around. He's like, you know, let's go. But Bazz-B's like, you know, what are you doing? I told you I'm interested. And Argola says, you know, I have work to do. You know, the least you can do for now is prepare yourself. And as Argola prepares to leave, Bazz-B fires an arrow in front of his horse, and he's like, you know, so all I have to do is show you my powers then. Come at me, and you know, if I win, you'll give me your post. I think it's interesting that he says that, considering he says basically exactly the same thing to Haschwalth back in 543, when he's like, you know, I'll fight you, and then I'll take the successor seat for myself, or something like that, he says. But I think it's really cool the way Kubo can draw characters in like a younger state, but still make them look exactly like they do in the present. It's really clever. But yeah, Argola turns around, doesn't look too happy about this. He actually looks very much like Zale, I think. But he's like, you know, uncouth primate, so you're the kind that won't get it unless you've died. Argola then begins to draw his sword. It's interesting, I think, that Argola has a sword, because this is 1,000 years ago. Presumably, this is before the Vandenreich started to move away from the Quincy tradition. So it's interesting that he has a blade. But like the emblems on his hat are all just the three-pronged Y, so that's kind of cool. But Bazz-B's like, you know, I like the ring of soldier killed in battle with a monkey. And, you know, he's like, I'll make sure your comrades relay that message to Yhwach. And they both lunge at each other. Argola looks really cool, actually, I think. And Bazz-B's pulling basically exactly the same pose here as he pulls against Hitsugaya, which is cool. You know, Haschwalth's like, oh crap, Bazz-B. And suddenly, Bazz-B gets crushed by this powerful Reiatsu, which is like, it's really cool, actually, because it's a nice throwback to, you know, the times when Reiatsu actually used to crush people. But, yeah, Bazz-B hits the floor and his bow just, like, explodes. And he's like, you know, what happened? And suddenly, Yhwach is behind him, looking really majestic and pretty badass on top of his horse. And Bazz-B's like, oh crap, Yhwach. And he's like, you know, so this Reiatsu's got everyone just on their knees, basically. And it's really cool. And Bazz-B's like, you know, you're a damn monster. Yhwach does appear to have the Almighty activated, which is kind of weird since he's not in a fight, but it's possible that he had this power active all the time and, like, you know, now it's reawakened in the present time. But yeah, basically, Yhwach explains that he's arrived coming to look for something. Someone that will eventually be his right-hand man. And Bazz-B thinks that this is his opportunity to get in there with Yhwach. You know, he's like, I'm the one you're looking for, I'll be the right-hand man, and then I'll kill you. However, Yhwach comes in front of Haschwalth, who hasn't been affected by Yhwach's Reiatsu, which is interesting. And everyone else is, like, on their knees around them. And basically, Yhwach's like, I know you, you're my other half. And that's the end of the chapter. So, in my opinion, there's not an awful lot to say with this week's Bleach chapter. It was interesting, definitely, because these kind of flashback chapters always are. And 1,000 years ago is the furthest we've ever gone back in the timeline as well, which is cool. The most interesting part probably is the ending, with Yhwach saying, you're my other half. I think that's quite literal as well. It's possible they can eventually fuse together to be one and the same. Now, this is something I thought was interesting. Jugo has no power. And I reckon that is because he is literally Yhwach's other half. Yhwach has all the power, and Haschwalth has none of it. And we know when they swap over at night time, Haschwalth gets all the power and Yhwach gets none of it. So, yeah, so they are literally two sides of the same scale. Literally two sides of the same scale. I still don't know what Yhwach is, though. Like, what is he? You know, of course he's a Quincy, I suppose, but, like, what is he that he splits his body into two and is this child who he's apparently never met before? It's really weird. And I'll tell you something else that I think is cool, and this is definitely very much verging on the crack theory, but Tensei Zangetsu obviously is Yhwach when he's a young guy. What if, and this really is like pure speculation, but obviously the fusion of Ichigo's Quincy powers and his Hollow and Shinigami powers created this Tensei Zangetsu with white hair. What if, you know, Yhwach's true form looks a bit like that, because obviously Haschwalth has blonde hair, and if they fuse together that might be what they look like. I don't know, that's just kind of a random speculation going on there. But, you know, this chapter was good, guys. Not an awful lot happened, though, but it's setting things up nicely. I really hope we get to see some of the Sternritter when they were younger soon. That'd be really cool. It looks like, I don't know if this is necessarily Haschwalth's betrayal. I don't think it is just yet, but, you know, presumably Yhwach will take probably both of them back to some kind of palace and introduce them to the rest of these would-be Sternritter, and maybe something like that will happen. I think if this arc is going to be quite long, this flashback arc, we could get a whole arc of the Sternritter creation, a whole volume of the Sternritter being created, then a whole volume of them attacking the Soul Society. I think that would be kind of neat. So yeah, the main things to take from this chapter were, you know, Haschwalth being Yhwach's other half, seeing Bazz-B and him kind of, you know, seeing the fact that Jugo has no power for himself, the fact that the Vandenreich originally had a three-pronged thing and then it becomes a five-pronged when it's the Sternritter. Argola and Hubert turning up was nice, and it was a good chapter overall, but just not an awful lot happened. It wasn't as exciting as last week's. But yeah, this flashback arc is looking to be very good so far. So on my new rating scale out of 5, I'm going to give this chapter a 3. It's a solid chapter, if a bit decidedly average, I suppose. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of this week's chapter, guys. Did you like the flashback, and how are you finding it so far? What do you think of the characters of Bazz-B and Haschwalth in the past, and what kind of... who do you think might be the Sternritter that we get to see first? I'm presuming Robert Accatrone is going to be around somewhere. But I was thinking it was cool, because last week Bazz-B said, I'll make you one of my followers. I was thinking maybe Bazz-B's got more followers, so like maybe a young Kang, a young Master Masculine, they might all be part of his gang, if he even has a gang. So yeah, let me know, guys. As always, please subscribe if you like my videos, I'd super appreciate it, and give this video a thumbs up, that'd be great. But until next time, guys, see you later.